Have you guys ever heard that Picasso quote? I don't know if it's an actual Picasso quote or if it's something that's just attributed to him, but the saying goes, good artists copy, great artists steal. And my interpretation of that quote is essentially, if you want to progress, then you need to take ideas from other people. If someone has a good idea, you need to take it and apply it in your own life or in your own work. Co-opt good ideas. Add them to your repertoire. It's a quote that my brother told me about when we were maybe 16, 17 years old, and it's something that I've internalized and I use constantly. When I was training as an artist, all I would do is observe other people's work. I would follow and analyze people who were much better than I was and try to do the same. Try to learn from everybody. Try to learn from the collective intelligence that's out there is essentially the way that I think about it. This is an idea that we should absolutely co-opt. This is an idea that I've been thinking about for a while, and while it's just hit the political conversation thanks to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., it's a fantastic idea. If we're talking about the importance of transparency in the world of politics, this idea alone can solve so many problems. Donald Trump needs to take it immediately, at least in my view, and make it part of his campaign pitch. Good artists copy, great artists steal. This campaign pitch should be stolen by the Trump team immediately. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that and why it's important. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so let's travel back in time to 2020. What was the major issue? You know, Democrats will go on and on about the big lie, conspiracy theory this and conspiracy theory that, but at the end of the day, the main issue was people simply didn't trust the process. They didn't believe it. And there was no way to actually audit and get to the bottom, get to the truth. I'm being purposely vague, but I'm pretty sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of unanswered questions and a general feeling of mistrust and lack of faith in the system, which I think then was inflamed and made worse with a mass censorship response from the powers that be. And ever since then, I've had a lot of conversations with my friends thinking about how you solve this problem of lack of transparency, which causes this mistrust in the system. Well, I'm pretty sure I've said this a long time ago in a video. In my view, the only way to have clear, objective transparency is by using blockchain technology, peer-to-peer, decentralized technology, and ledgers. In other words, using the same technology that's used in file sharing services and, of course, cryptocurrencies. A totally decentralized network that no one person controls that has a completely transparent, clear, and accurate ledger of every transaction or every action that happens on the network. That's the way you fix the transparency issue in government. Well, now Robert F. Kennedy Jr. seems to be saying the same thing.
I'm going to put the entire U.S. budget on blockchain so that every American can look at every budget item in the entire budget anytime they want, 24 hours a day. We're going to have 300 million eyeballs on our budget. And if somebody is spending $16,000 for a toilet seat, everybody's going to know about it.
And he is absolutely right, and it shouldn't just apply to government spending. It should also apply to how people vote. A lot of people talk about only paper ballots. And sure, paper ballots work, but they're not nearly as trustworthy as blockchain technology. Many people don't want any technology involved in the voting process because they think it can be manipulated. But it depends on the type of technology. Blockchain technology, peer-to-peer technology, doesn't have that weakness. Essentially, the way that it would work is you would have a completely decentralized system where every single action on the network is logged and accounted for. And the only way that you could vote in that system is with a specific identifying key, essentially a citizen key, that can be applied for and only attributed to you. So when an individual goes to vote, let's say it's John Smith from Palm Beach, Florida. Well, John Smith has a unique identifier code, and when he casts his ballot, it pops up on the logs or on the ledger, and boom, you have a surety, you have an actual tracking process to know that that vote was legitimate and cast properly. It's a no-brainer. And really, the same technology should apply to government spending. There's too much of an unaccountable nature, a lack of transparency with how taxpayer dollars are spent. We all remember the Pentagon discovering a $6.2 billion accounting error. Whoopsie.
During the department's regular oversight of our execution of Presidential Drawdown Authority for Ukraine, we discovered inconsistencies in equipment valuation for Ukraine. In a significant number of cases, services used replacement costs rather than net book value, thereby overestimating the value of the equipment drawn down from U.S. stocks and provided to Ukraine. Once we discovered this misvaluation, the comptroller reissued guidance on March 31st, clarifying how to value equipment in line with the financial management regulation and DoD policy to ensure we use the most accurate of accounting methods. We have confirmed that for FY23, the final calculation is $3.6 billion, and for FY22, it is $2.6 billion, for a combined total of $6.2 billion. These valuation errors in no way limit or restricted the size of any of our PDAs or impacted the provision of support to Ukraine. And while the DoD retains the authority to utilize the recaptured PDA, this has no bearing on appropriated USAI or Ukraine PDA replenishment funding approved by Congress.
You know, we keep hearing about $100 billion here, $60 billion there, multiple trillion dollars everywhere. All this money being spent, all this money moving around, but no actual way to track it and to see how it's being spent or where it's going. Chip Roy just revealed that only $47 billion of the $113 billion in Ukraine funding actually went to lethal aid. The question is, where did the other $66 billion go?
If they're actually lethal aid. But I want everybody out there in the audience to remember, the $113 billion, I want to repeat, the $113 billion that's already been appropriated for Ukraine, only 44 to 47 billion of that, two different reports I've seen, is lethal aid. So what was the other 66 to 69 billion dollars for? If they had held that back and used it responsibly, then maybe they'd still have money to come over and try to buy the stuff they need. I want to get into the details in terms of classified stuff, but the stuff that they need to continue to fight. So, that's what they did. And so now we're trying to be responsible. We want to secure the border. We're, as the president is, look, I'll listen to you on what you need for lethal aid. We don't want to see Putin march through Kyiv, but you aren't putting America first, and you aren't being responsible with the money. So the president is exactly right. Don Jr. is exactly right. This is a complete capitulation by the speaker. It's completely irresponsible.
Well, that's a great question. Don't you think you, as a taxpayer, should have instant access to be able to track where your taxpayer dollars are being sent or are being spent? Well, again, the only way to actually do that in a totally uncorruptible manner that could be audited in about 5 seconds is once again through decentralized blockchain technology. RFK Jr., I think, is onto something big. And if we're talking about free and fair elections, again, the only answer has to be blockchain technology. Now, I know a lot of people probably don't understand what I'm saying when I say decentralized networks or peer-to-peer technology. It's kind of a hard thing to explain, but essentially, it's a network that isn't centralized in one server or controlled by one administrator. It's open network technology across anybody's systems or any server that decides to host the network. There's no executive power or control of the network. The network itself lives and breathes among all of us. That's why people love cryptocurrencies so much, because governments cannot control them. You can't shut the network down. You can't take control of the network. That's why cryptocurrencies are like the wild, wild west in the financial game. Well, why not utilize that technology to provide actual transparency in the process? So voters themselves could audit the network and rest assured that their tax dollars are being spent effectively and efficiently, or that elections, again, could operate totally transparently, and every vote could then be traced to a unique identifier code that essentially gives you confirmation that only citizens are voting and only people who actually have residence in the state or district are voting in that state or district. It's a no-brainer to me. There's an obvious heightened level of mistrust. Well, why not use technology to fix that problem instead of demonizing people who have questions or don't trust the process? It seems like the smartest, most intuitive solution to the problem that we face. And of course, with this issue being very important to the former president, it's an idea that I think he should adopt. The American people deserve transparency into how their government is spending their money, and that's a stance that I think most people can't argue against. I'm sure the powers that be will have a whole lot of arguments. There'll be a whole lot of pushback, but that in itself essentially tells you all that you need to know now, doesn't it? I am 100% for this. I've mentioned this in the past, and with Trump recently adopting an anti-central bank digital currency stance, I don't see why this talking point couldn't also be adopted. Young voters will get it. Tech-savvy people will get it. It's frankly the only way to actually legitimately restore faith in the process that has unfortunately so sadly been lost. I mean, you can't possibly be the bad guy for suggesting a totally decentralized, open ledger that gives absolute visibility to the American taxpayer and voter, now can you? In my view, anybody who takes a stance against this, well, right away, they've exposed themselves. Anyways, just a thought, a real interesting clip that I figured I'd talk about. Those who understand this technology, I'm sure we're speaking the same language, and those who don't, we'll take a look what blockchain technology and peer-to-peer technology means. I'm not talking about crypto Ponzi schemes and stuff. I'm talking about the technology behind cryptocurrency. And of course, I'm not calling all cryptocurrency Ponzi schemes. I'm very much into crypto and I have a whole portfolio. I'm just trying to dissuade some of the skepticism and panic that I think might affect a lot of people who are listening to this. We're not talking about Ponzi schemes. We're not talking about currencies or cryptos. We're talking about the technology behind it. Again, take a look, research it, and you should come to the same conclusion. This is a fantastic idea and it instantly solves so many problems. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.